Here is a May 2024 point cloud showing the base trail at Goats Peak Park in the central portion of the park. This is where the road turns and leads down to the private property, and there's two lock blocks here. And this is an old access trail that's been gated off here. And what we're looking at in this area here with these bright or light colored steep rock faces is where the rock was carved away over a decade ago to help establish this trail. So I'm looking at some rockfall hazards in this area and changes that I've been able to detect since 2021. So there's a 2021 orthophoto that provides kind of a reference for changed conditions. And so I'll start from the west and kind of work to the east. At this location, there's a large log on the talus slope, but 3 years ago it was up here someplace. So it's moved down the slope. Much like a lot of the rock on that slope is gradually rolling and creeping down, there appears to be a few new boulders right here at the tip of this talus slope. There's a small little catchment. There's a soil berm here and a little bit of a ditch, and some of those boulders have accumulated right in this area. That's probably one of them right there. So, as expected, these talus slopes are feeding material down to this access road level. But it also shows that even a modest little ditch and a soil berm is able to capture some of those. And it may be a mitigation strategy to try to reestablish a slightly bigger berm here with a upslope ditch or swale to capture some of the bigger rocks that roll down the slope. Moving slightly to the east, but much higher up the slope, we end up encountering these really jagged sections of rock. I got a lot of black spots where I'm missing points. They're overhanging sections. They're areas where certainly rocks are falling off all the time, contributing to these talus slopes below. But even further up, where this green dot is, there's a little bit of a small bedrock bluff. And sometime after 2021, this portion right here failed and dropped. And all the rock that you see down here probably came from there, including this larger one located here. So these boulders have come down. Most of the debris has stayed very close to the base of the bluff and hasn't really traveled down this slope. So this slope, you can see by the nature of the vegetation on it, is not quite as steep as some of the talus slopes. And that's probably why a lot of this material is able just to stay there. But it's showing that this, the weathering process is contributing to, larger volumes of rock that are coming down. I think when I measured this block, it's about a half a meter thick, 1.2 meters by 1.1 or 1 meter. So it's a fairly large block, but it's kind of a tabular shape, which is probably why it didn't go too far when it rolled down the slope. I couldn't find any evidence of fresh within the last 3 years, significant rock failures from these really jagged ridges and pinnacles of rock. I'll stay up top. I'll come to the east here. So there's this little rock outcrop, and there are some trails in this park. This is one of them here that comes into this trail, and then there's another trail that goes back over to here, and you're just catching the edge of the main trail that leads up to all the way up to the top of Goats Peak Park. So this, to zoom in here, this trail that you can just sort of see through here, there's been an attempt to decommission that trail by blocking it with some logs here. And that seems to be working. I don't think there's that many people using it. When I came up to take my drone, I flew from this location and I continued climbing up higher and then came across on this trail. And that's a nice trail. It follows the contours essentially of this hillside. Not a lot of people are using it, but some people are getting out to this point for the view. You have an excellent view. And there's evidence that they've had campfires and they've left a little bit of garbage behind. But there's also evidence right here that potentially people have been going out to the very edge of this thing and rolling off rocks. There was some rock sitting in this little area and is gone now. But there is evidence. That's one here. Some of the rock down below might have come from here. Whether it's caused by people or a natural event is hard to say, but I would suspect it's people, just given how there's a socket in the hill there where that rock was originally sitting. And of course, if you look down, and if you have people rolling rocks or grabbing bigger rocks and rolling them down, there's a good chance that it can go all the way down to this to the access road below. So there's that. Anything kind of west of here is really quite a low rockfall risk. There is talus. There's evidence that small pieces of rock are coming down, but the condition of these bedrock bluffs is quite a bit better than it is further to the west. So you could still have some rock come off, but there's flatter areas in the slope which would probably retain most of the material, and there is this one little talus channel down here, but everything that's coming down seems to be pretty small. So this might be the eastern limit of a risk along this trail for rockfall. And as you get further to the west, you start to see areas where there could be rock coming off quite close to the trail. So it's places like this, there's overhanging areas. There's an undercut to this whole bluff right here where it's kind of black, missing some points. So those could contribute some rock fall. And because there's bedrock outcrops here, the rock tends to divert around them. You can sort of see that in the nature of the talus. So, this may be a slightly higher hazard than here, even though it's hard to see, but there's a kind of a vertical face here. There's some trees obscuring the point cloud. And then you're back into areas where rocks could come down the talus and on the trail. There's a potential for warning. So if a person was walking along here and was listening, you might be able to hear something coming down and take evasive action. But as you get into this rock cut, you may hear it, but you won't be able to see it because things are obscured by the crest of this cut. Now, fortunately, there are a set of essentially sloping benches above here. And so you can see that the talus is accumulating above these benches. So these things are, I guess, natural traps for some rocks that might originate from way up on the hillside. So that's favorable news. And what we need to do now is just to look very carefully at this rock face and the crest area to identify a few areas where some scaling might be appropriate, because there are a couple small areas of some slabs that could drop down onto the trail. Now, at this point, you see a kind of a V notch in that rock cut. So that was taken out in the early days when this trail was pushed through, largely because of some of the geological structure here was contributing to a kind of an unstable wedge. And maybe fortunately, this V notch is sitting at this location on the hill. And if you go up slope, you see these bedrock gullies, trenches, and rock is falling off the sides of those things. And any rock that's sort of weathering and coming down tends to be trapped by this big trench and gradually guided lower down the slope. And it concentrates the material to come down right here. And the evidence is clear. You've got this cone of debris that's accumulated over time right in this notch. So fortunately, we have the notch. It wasn't put there on purpose to capture debris. It was just because of the nature of the rock here. And it keeps the material away from the trail. So things will drop essentially straight down into this notch. But the accumulated debris should probably be removed. As it gets higher and higher, there's a chance for rocks that land on it will continue to go out towards the trail. So it'll make a safer catchment area just to clean that material out of there. This has always been a wet area here. You can even see the moist conditions here. That's not a major concern. I mean, that's probably why you're seeing a little bit higher vegetation growing in this area too. So the groundwater has been somehow captured and funneled down to this one spot. But I don't see any major signs of instability where this wet area is today. That is probably the overview I wanted to cover. I will provide more details for the rock cut in a separate video using close-up imagery as opposed to the aerial imagery that was used here. That's where the camera was located to acquire the point cloud that you've been looking at.